Right, everyone, I did say I'd come back and share the photograph if I can find it, so I can show you what that little girl looks like. But I found lots of other things while I was looking around. And this is a poem I wrote. My sister Joanne, who helped me, she writes poetry all the time, and she's extremely good at it. And we've been saying for years she should get it published because it's come so natural to her. But for me, I have to think about it. So this was one about a little cat. Oh, little cat, just look at you there. Oh, little cat, just look at you there. Your tail is on fire while smoke fills the air. Your poor little paws all burnt and sore. Let's soak them in water, then soak them some more. I'll put out the fire, just wait a tick. Then off to the vets before you get sick. Now, little cat, you'll be just fine. Your paws now in bandages will heal in time. The carpet's all burnt while the clothes are the same. But you, my little darling, were never to blame. Oh well, you know. I sometimes do write poetry. I like to do a bit of everything. Now I found these and it's got my mum's Edith Marion Hall on it, where my sister pops out. This is my second eldest sister, Judy, taken many, many, many years ago. My eldest sister, so that's the eldest one, Linda, then Judy, and then we've got Jane and Peter, who are the twins. Then we've got Richard, then me, then Alison and Joanne. Yeah, that was my mum. She always looks so worried sometimes. That was my gran, who died at 104 in 2008. Eva, Charlotte Eva Victoria Hall. So I got Charlotte, Fiona Charlotte, and my youngest sister Joanne got Joanne Victoria. And that's what a cousin of ours. My mum. That's my mum again. God, I used to carry these around in my wallet. That was my father. And that's the jumper I knit him, the Aran jumper. Bloody hell. That was my mum. Well, she'd started to get ill there. And that's not long before she passed away, actually. And she had to take her hair thing out. She wouldn't have that on. She looked really poorly. And that was our old dog Tish when I was growing up. Don't know where that was. I usually write on the back. That was my mum and Tish in the caravan. My grandma's caravan. Oh, my uncle. Oh, God, what was his name? Uncle. I've forgotten his name. Oh, my God, how can I forget his name? He's on the Hall side. That was my dad's... my dad's grandma's side, I have to think, because my grandma and my granddad were cousins. And that was my mum and dad when they had their stall. Selling all... My dad had this one selling all kinds of kitchenware and that. My mother had that one selling books and comics. So yeah. I'm going to have to leave that out because it'll come back to me. I've never ever forgotten his name. We used to see him a lot. He lived in Seattle. And used to bring his grandson over in that. I will remember it. Uncle... Sure it begins with L. Anyway, these are just random things I found that are all piled up. That was my mum and dad. And she was 67 when she died. And she died in 2000. Then his mum, which is my grandma, who was 104, She died in 2004, aged, sorry, yeah, 2004, not 8, aged 104, and my dad died aged 75 in 2008. So there's 4 years between, 8 years between their deaths, and 4 years between hers and my grandma's and his mum's. So yeah. Actually, I'm going to put that in with the others. Seeing it's got her name on. Yeah, that was a watercolour painting I did in 2002 of an iris. Loved the colours. Now, I don't know when these were taken. I can't remember. But it's a long, long time ago. That's Joanne, who is now... well, I'm 62 in March. Oh, 25th of March, I'm 62. God, I feel ancient. And she's 6 years younger than I am. But as you can see, even years ago when I had really short hair, we were jewellery people. We loved jewellery. But oh my God, that's a long time ago. That was my dad's, where my dad moved to when my mum passed away. He came to Scotland. We were living in Scotland, and he had a little bungalow in a community. We did all the planting for him and done all his garden and decorated it all ready for him moving in, me and Ray. Oh, that was one of his trees he loved. Oh God, you don't want to see these. These are just plants we put in for him. He only had that little patch. Really loved it with bird table and that. There's a potter out there all day long. Who's this? Oh my God, now this must be years ago, because this little girl is now a mother with 4 children. This is me, and that's Bethany, my niece, which is Joanne's eldest daughter. Joanne's got 2 boys, then she had 2 girls, and she's the eldest of the girls. And the youngest one's now got a 6-month-old baby as well. So she's got 4 children. Oh my God. Oh, I'll have to show her that one. She'll have a laugh. No, this is Joe's. They're now not together, but ex-partner Glenn. They've been together 45 years, and they split up nearly a year ago. That's his youngest boy, Jordan, my youngest boy, Gary, and Sadie. Oh my. When we used to all go out and mix together. And that's, I think that's Jordan. Yeah, Jordan. And his cousin, Sadie. Yeah, well, and she's 40 now. And she was only a teen there. Oh, my dad. I think it was his birthday probably. We all took him out. He's the one that does the paintings. There's Bethany. These were just printed off. Joanne. Who, when she was younger and had short hair, used to look like Princess Diana when Diana used to wear the high neck blouses and that. She was very similar to her. Oh God. Oh my word. Me. Years ago. Oh God. I can't even remember how long ago. Jesus. Oh, that's Glenn and Sadie. I mean, it's he's holding a phone to her ear, and it's a flip-top phone. So that's years ago. My God. Like I say, it's Joanne's ex. Oh, and my granddaughter, you remember Billy May and Jamie Lee? Well, Billy May is the double of her. She is the spitting image of her auntie. In mannerisms, the way she's with money, the way she is with work. She's a workaholic. There's Van, who's she's just had a little girl herself, who's now 6 months old. That's when she was little. Crazy to look back so many years. I don't know what my dad were doing there. Trying to look at somebody. There's Bethany and Grandad. Well, great-granddad back then. Raymond and Joanne. Oh my God. Let me show them to this. They'll be going, oh my God, put it away. Oh God. No, you don't want to see. And Raymond. Oh God. It's weird when you find pictures and you look back on old pictures. My God. This is me and My nephew, which is my eldest sister's boy, Connor, he's her third youngest, and no, second youngest, and he has just come back from Canada, where he also now has a 12-year-old daughter. And they were my twin dogs. They were actually twin dogs. My word. Yeah, many years ago was that. My mum. That's a nice one of my mum. And then me feeding a blooming deer. I remember the farm. I remember where it was. It was in Scotland. It was one of the holidays we had in Scotland. One of the early holidays. Yeah. So, I'm going to just show you. So I can't remember his name. His name's just I can't remember it. It's Uncle. It'll be in the book. You'll see it in the book. So, I'm just going to show you some bits and pieces from my past, from my family. If you don't want to watch, move along. Because right now, somebody might want to see them. And if they do, that's fine. God, Jesus. When I was doing the, well, I am doing the family tree. It's a continuous thing. I've been doing it over 40 years. And you can tell by the paper. These were all the names and addresses that I took from certificates. So I had things to go on. So if you are going to start your family tree, and I advise all of you to try it, look, get all your certificates out from your parents, your grandparents, and however many you've got, even aunts and uncles. And just look at the addresses and start there to do your investigation. Then go on to newspapers, see if there's anything been put in the newspaper about the, that particular person. And as you can see, my Henry and Martha was my dad's grandparents. She was the big lady, and he was the tiny man, but so gentle. That's the ones that had the coaching houses. Uncle Harry and Aunt Pat. And oh, they have the City Arms. Oh, now. So, right, I said, I'm going to have to, let me just draw it for you, because you need to see on, maybe I've got a copy. Just hang on. Oh my God, there's all sorts in here. It actually needs sorting out. Is there a family? Here we are, right. So, this is, I got further back than that. But Carlotta Toseland and Aaron Wells, they had Martha Wells and Annie Wells. So they're sisters. Martha married Henry William Peters from St Ives. She was from Godmanchester, Huntingdon. Annie Wells, also from Huntingdon, married William Henry Hall. So they had, obviously sisters, they had these two children. That's my grandma, who was 104 when she passed, and my granddad, Edward Aaron Hall. And they had one child, that was my dad, who married my mum, Edith Marion Smith Nee Sturdy. She was a widower. And then there's me. So that's my family. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 generations there. Now, I'll go back to things when I need to. So, let me just see. So, let me just stand this here. Martha and Henry is this couple here. Edward and Eva is these two. Alfred Charles Boyland was her sister. They had another daughter who died at 21, which she'll need to go on. She is on the family tree, but this was just the 5 generation that I was showing, because I wrote a book. And Annie Elizabeth Bell married Alfred Charles Boyland. And they had a daughter who was my father's only cousin. Aaron Wells, which is this guy here. So from all the certification that we found, they lived at these addresses, and I'm gonna read them out because I loved the words of them, and I do have photographs of some of them from the archives in Peterborough. So Forsyth Street was Henry and Martha. That was one of their properties. That's Henry and Martha, these two. They also lived at one point at the Royal Oak, so they run the public house there. Henry and Martha from 4 St Margaret's Road, that was a house. 28 Silver Street. And they also lived at 44 Caverstead Road. Then they lived at 7 Slows Buildings, which I've got a photograph of that, but I don't think it exists anymore. And then 8 to Eastgate. And we haven't got the China Cup on here, have we? They also had a coaching house, the China Cup. And only one part of the end of the wall is still there. It was knocked down many, many years ago, but they saved the corner and built onto it. So they built something else onto that, a row of houses. When they got married, she was divorced. He'd never been married. And although they were cousins, they eloped. And they eloped to Wilford Grove, up north. I can't remember the area. It'll come back to me. Her niece, so her sister died at 21, but the daughter that her sister had was Marjorie. She married a John Skews, and they lived at Mount Stephen Avenue in Peterborough. My mum and dad, when I was born at a place called the Gables, which is right outside the main hospital. It's a mini house hospital. And I don't think the original hospital was there. I don't think the big hospital was there, because I was born at the Gables. And we lived at 48 Bright Street, which is now gone. It got knocked down. It was about 6 houses in Peterborough. That's when I was born. So yeah, it's just really weird. My Aunt Marge lived at Eastfield. Oh, she was buried at Eastfield Cemetery. Yeah, the Gables, that's where I was born. They were mostly married at St Mary's Church in Peterborough. And Milton Estates was where my mother came from. So, just collect as much information as you can. Now, let's go back to this. What's this? Fifi. Oh God, it's another poem. This was one Joanne wrote. If I can read it, I will. Happy birthday, sister dear. Have a lovely day. Well, now I've said the niceties, I've something else to say. At first I thought that I would write quite serious, and then, as is my prerogative, I changed my mind again. As you're getting older and your calendar's quite full, being honest as I am, I know you don't like bull. Let's talk about your wrinkles, though you have but few. Suicide, my darling, I'd advise you not to do. Hang on. Oh, God. I haven't seen this in years. There we are. Oh, yeah, we're getting it right. Mother Nature will take care of it, and gravity the same. And many parts of you, my dear, will take a different name. Your boobs where once were firm, sis, will suddenly be gone. Eventually they'll touch the ground that you now walk upon. Your tummy once a pleasure to see and not to hide will pretty soon resemble the remains of a landslide. Your bum, once heart-shaped, will double in its size. And I can't see for tears now. And your knees will follow suit, love. This does not bring surprise. Lastly, let us talk about your appearance overall. We really are quite similar, though you're not quite as tall. Oh dear. I'm big and fat, you're small and fat. But please don't be insulted. I blame our mum and dad's sex life, because we were what resulted. My words are meant in fun, love. I hope they don't offend, for not only are we siblings, I'd like to think that I'm your friend. The end. Love, Joanne. Oh, Joe, that was brilliant. She'll go mad, I've read that. She's really good, isn't she? She can write serious poetry or funny. But I love her funny ones, and she's written, oh, lots and lots of them. Now, let's have a look what else we've got here. What are these? Oh, mine. This City and Guilds, which I have. Who was successful in the following 7 units. Help with classroom resources and records, help with the care and support of pupils, provide effective support for learning activities, provide effective support for your colleagues, support literacy and numeracy activities in the classroom, contribute to the management of pupils' behaviour, support the maintenance of public safety and security. Ooh. Yes, my city. Oh, I got another one. Yeah, there's 2. Oh, that was for level 2 NVQ for teaching assistant. And that was an NVQ too. Then I did the these. Level 2 again for adult numeracy. Adult literacy. Oh, that's levels 1 and 2. 1 and 2 on both. And I laminated them to keep them so that they don't go thingy. What's... Oh, God. Oh, God, I'm 35 when she wrote me this one. Let's have a look. I'm not letting you see it, because no. Fifi, well, you're 35 now, just a few years yet to go, but life begins at 40, as before me you'll know. Please don't take offence, as I don't mean to be rude, and I'm really... Oh, it's I can't see it, it's marked. I'm really something not to be rude. But your skin will slowly shrivel, and you'll get wrinkles au galore. Just when you find a cure for them, you'll get some more. When young, we just do what we like, our precious wings we spread. When finally we reach 40, it's our thighs instead. Still, you're not quite there yet, but your boobs, you know, where once were firmly rounded, will be the first to go. And, oh, I can't see what that says either. And last to go will be your face. What, something have been, oh, wrinkles have been sparse, and pretty soon you will resemble a hard smacked ass. Never mind, my sister, I'll go the same, there is no hitch, 'cause even during happy times, life can be a bitch. Oh, dearie me, she's crackers. Crackers, crackers, crackers. She wrote this about my husband. You're not seeing him, right? You're not going to see them. This was about my husband. He's my husband and my lover, but most importantly my friend, for all life's little nuisances will be together till the end. His manner can be calming, but to some can be a worry. However, if your voice your thoughts, he'll assure you in a hurry. Cool and calm, collective is this man to all around, but there's underlying passion just waiting to be found. Generous to a fault, he'll give to those he chose to love, and he'll give until he feels it's time to join with him above. She wrote that for his 50th, I think. What's this one? This was about me, her, and the one in between us, so it's called The Bitches. If ever there were bitches, then we 3 are this. We seal our sibling love with a hug and with a kiss. There's nowhere in this world we can meet without a fall, and Joe's the worst of all of us, the biggest bitch of all. Fiona is more sensible. Fiona is more sensible, mature in different ways. Joanna true attractant to all the waifs and strays. Alison, for all her size, is softer in the middle. Will we ever really get on, or will life forever be a riddle? Fiona living far away, Alison really made the day when she moved along to Germany and took my stress away. At times, we're much the same, if only by our size. We love each other really, to our dear mum's surprise, mild surprise. But let some silly person have a go at one or all, and our closeness is apparent because you're heading for a fall. Fiona's mental status leaves a lot to be desired. If only she was born a male, by bouncers she'd be hired. I'm really calm. Alison the boxer could make Bruno take a fall, and Joe, God bless her cotton socks, is the softest of them all. Oh my God, I'm going to show her these. She'll have forgotten all about them. Right, now let's get into the family tree bit, because that's what I was about to do. So, let me see. Oh my. That's a good poem, that one. I like that one. Oh, move that one. That's going over there. There's the index. And that one forward. And that one should go in there. So, I'm going to take you through some family bits. Now, this was... John Toseland was born 22nd of October 1808. And he died in 1866. He was the husband of Martha Saddington. So I have to go back to here. She was Carlotta Toseland. And her mother was Martha Saddington. And her father was John Toseland. So Martha Saddington and John Toseland. So that's another 6 generations back. He was also called John Toseland, son of Susan Allen, John Toseland, Susan Allinge, grandson of Simon Toseland, Elizabeth Cuddington, and father of Carlotta Wells. Right. And that's Carlotta. And that's the earliest photographical find of her. So, I wrote everything I could that I knew about them from all the documentation. So if you're going to be doing a family tree, you need to do a page like this. And keep notes of everything and then put it in chronological order if you can. And here's the family tree. So I know you won't be able to see it, but I'm going to talk you through it. So this is a family tree of Fiona Jennings on the Toseland side of the family, and I've had to drop several members of one's family to fit them on the pages. So I basically just wanted to go, this is me. I don't know if you can see it. This is me. This is my mum and my dad. And then this is my dad's side. Which is Edward Aaron Hall. That was his father. And Charlotte Eva Victoria Peters. Now, these two were Mayor and Mayoress of Peterborough in 1971-72. And I've got photographs of that. So this was, both their mothers were sisters. So Edward's mother was Annie Wells and Charlotte's mother was Martha Wells. And they were the daughters of Carlotta Toseland. Carlotta Toseland married Aaron Wells. And there was brothers and sisters as well. She was the daughter of John and Martha Saddington. John Toseland and Martha Saddington. He was a son of John Toseland. He was the son of Simon Toseland, and he was the son of Simon and Elizabeth Lodson at Toseland. So, this tree is massive. It's really long. It's on a big roll. And we got it right back to 1525, so I could go back a lot further. And there was over 5,500 members. Back to 1525. So, again... like this. That was me and Sadie. So that's me, Alison and Joanne. We have got 5 other brothers and sisters, but this was off my dad's side. My dad and my mother, Edward and Charlotte, which was my gran and granddad, and that was Edward's mum and dad, which were these, William Henry Hall and Annie Wells, sister of Martha Wells. And then go back another generation and so forth like that. And they all come from really big families. Like there were 13 other children besides these. Again, like you say, that's my mum and my gran and granddad, who were Mayor and Mayoress of Peterborough. And it just keeps going back. But you go back to the same person, you know, on my dad's side. On my grandmother's side. They all lead back to their 2 sisters. Henry William Peters, see? Charles Harradine and Annie Elizabeth Bell. They were the children of John Peters and Hannah Harradine. Now, you've heard of Harradine, the actors. They're related. Quite a few of them throughout the years are. Thomas Peters and Anne Allen. So that's those. Again, my mum's first marriage, and then she married my dad. And that goes back on my mum's side, which is John Hardcastle Sturdy. And they joined families with the Smiths. And that's a bugger to trace, I'll tell you. So yeah, I've got all the paperwork that goes in between. I just need to print it off my photography. Oh my God. Just some pictures. But that's that. Now I'm just going to share some other bits because I've just dug this out and I've forgotten. It needs sorting because look. Oh, that was my father's and mother's marriage certificate. So they got married in 1963. No, I was born in 1961. I'm just looking for some photographs, to be honest. But this all needs sorting. Oh my God, action plan. It's just... There's all sorts. Oh God, this is an old pic. Oh, here's one. Look, this is. I was looking not for this particular picture at all, but I was going through the books at Peterborough Library in you know what used to be classed as Huntingdon, but it's Cambridge, and I looked and I thought that looks just like my mother. That and when my grandmother, and when I used the spyglass, it was it. So I took it to see it. I took a copy and took it. She lives at well, the shop was at Dogsthorpe Road Co-op, 1919, which I often went in when I was a kid. And it said it shows the staff standing outside one of Peterborough's Equitable and Industrial Cooperative Society shops situated at Dogsthorpe Road on the corner of its junction with Princess Street. The window advertisements are for CWS P-Law, cake and bun flour, and the displays of tin goods feature cocoa and OXO and HP sauce. And that's my grandfather's wife, my grandmother, Eva, born 1901 and died, well, she had a little label stuck over it in the Bible. I've got the family Bible, huge thing, and she put a little label over it as though we wouldn't know. Because as the ages have gone, the years have passed, the label's gone brown, so we peeled it back carefully, and it had 1901. She would try to lie. She was 104 when she died, so she had a good life. This, oh, that was my, I've got to show you these bits and pieces. You don't, I mean, if you want to turn off, bugger off. You know, I don't mean it. That's my society that I started many, many, many years, and I was number one. I was the Honourable President. I am the Honourable President and Secretary of the Toes and Clan Society. And they call me Charlie Jennings because it's Charlie short for Charlotte, and my name is Fiona Charlotte. So that's that. Jennings. Oh, God. This is when Deacon was born, my first grandson. Jennings, Dias, Gemma and John, congratulations on the safe arrival of your son Deacon. £6.15 on Sunday, December the 17th. Love, Mum, Dad, Chris, Kelly and Ebony. And that was exactly a month after my mum passed away. So she never got to see him. She knew he was a boy, but she never got to see him because she died the month before he was born. Now, this is an old photograph, as you can see. My father. Right, so that was my dad, who served there. He was in Egypt. Now, this is how weird things can be. He was listed in Elgin, up in Scotland, where he was stationed. And he spent 2 years national service. They sent him over to Egypt. This was his crew. He was the main man, and he drove the truck. And they're all eating a giant piece of melon, and my dad's got the knife in his hand. And this is my father. And the thing what he always said was, when they got off the plane, he knew, although he'd never travelled before outside of the God, I haven't looked at this stuff for a while, years actually. So there she is. That's my granddad when he was mayor, and my grandmother. He was known as Ted. My dad on his first wedding, and that was his uncle's wedding. I'll show the bigger pictures. Les Hall, knew it would begin with L. That was him. Les Hall, my uncle, my dad's cousin. I couldn't remember his bloody name. Oh my God. I'll show you some of the bigger pictures. Annie Wells was the sister of Martha Wells. So they were the two sisters that were the parents of my gran and my grandfather. I'm going to have to sort all this out. I've not looked in here for a long while. Oh, they were related to the Hall. That was my mum. My mum when she was dancing. I think she said she was about 11, 12, something like that. Bloody hell. Oh, Perkins, my granddad, Edward Aaron Hall, says, thanks for your letter dated 13th of January 1994 regarding your grandfather, Mr. Edward Aaron Hall. Says, I have checked our records and had found that Mr. Hall commenced employment with us on the 5th of April 1954 and left due to redundancy on the 30th of September 1971. As you stated in your letter, he was employed as a clerk in production control at the time of leaving. On joining us in 1954, he was a progress chaser, and after that he was employed in various clerical positions within purchase and production control. So when you find out where they worked, they do keep records. If the places are still standing and still working, they do keep records. And I wrote there. And the reason why I'm telling you all of this is because a lot of people, oh, I don't know what to do, I don't know how to start. Get your birth certificates, your death certificates, your marriage certificates together. Take all the information off that you can for each individual. Make a page for each individual. Start writing in chronological order, or in date order, that's what I mean, and whatever. And then start, get letters sent out and phone calls on. Today's so easy. You can email someone. You don't have to write. Oh, that was Deacon and Ethan's holiday. That was a write-up on our holiday. Now, my grandfather, Henry William Peters, the little guy who was married to the big woman, he was a member of the Masons, but he was on the lower rank, the lowest. And it was the Royal Antediluvian Order of Buffaloes. That don't even take any notice of that. It doesn't even exist anymore. But my grandfather, I have the medal, and it's an engraving on the back of the medal my father had that was his grandfather's, Henry William Peters, states Order of Merit and Honour of Knighthood, Brother Harry William Peters, CP, by Eastgate Lodge. Gives you the number. It is made of gold. He has ribbons that are not attached to the medals in pale blue and one in stripes of maroon and gold. And I couldn't find any information. And his uncle as well, my dad's uncle, Alfred John Hall, he was also one. He had a medal from the lodge. So I wrote to them and asked them for information. Now, oh, little bit of information. If you live in Wales, and you see this monument in Wales, the Lancashire Square, Conway, well, Ray's dad painted that every year. He was the one that painted it, made it, kept it all bright colours and everything. And I've got a photograph of Ray sat in front of that. It's just a bit of history. Oh, one of my little dogs. This was Becky. Poor bugger went senile. We had her about 14 years. I'm sorry, but I never know what I'm going to pull out of these bags and envelopes, so you'll just have to bear with me. Let me just see. Oh, this was when my dad died. So, he died on the 11th of January 2008, age 75. Peter Hall. It's Peter William Hall, to be honest. Yeah, and he's buried at Kilwinning in Scotland. That's where he lived. Yeah, and that's his plots and everything. Had to purchase a plot for him. So, let's have a look. I don't mind sharing this lot. Oh, they were when they used to do the really big old street parties. These were people who were bringing photographs into me, and they'd mark them out of who was who. You know, and my dad marked them when he remembered who anyone he could remember. Let's put it that way. Alright, these were my dad's drawings of Huntingdon and St Germain Street in Huntingdon. Places he remembered. More street parties, pictures of. And he could remember certain people, you know, I've written down. But not everybody. Not everybody. Lydia. Oh, Lydia. That was my Aunt Lydia, that. My dad's Aunt Lydia. And that's her there. The Dew side of the family. This was Susan Dew, nee Hall. So she married a Dew. That was in Christmas in 1929. Not a very good picture, but, you know, we're lucky to get any of these pictures. Ethel Dew, Edith Dew, again Susan Dew, nee Hall, sister to Sarah Hall, who was my dad's side. So again, the sister, Aunt Sarah Hall. I'm looking for the little old picture. That was Benjamin, Harold, Percy, of this little girl. I know I've seen it now. This was my granddad. Now, the yard he's in, I've actually been there. I went to this house and I took my son Gary when he was about 11, 12 years old, and we went down to Peterborough in Huntingdon for a week to do some research at the research centre there. And it's an old-fashioned building, and we went in, little place, and I devoured everything, and I went to see people who knew him, and, oh, I've got a picture of your granddad, your great-granddad and whatnot, and I was just blown away. When I come home, my mind was all muddled till I sorted it all out. But this is William Hall. He lived at 24 Ouse Walk in Huntingdon, and that was Martha's brother-in-law. So his sister, his wife Annie, was Martha's sister, remember? And I went in the cobble. It's still cobbled, would you believe it? You know, if you watch Coronation Street and you go out into the backyards, they're all cobbled. That's what it was like. And and that was Martha and Annie. Again, she was a big plump lady. William Henry and Annie Wells. This was the shop at the end of the street that's still standing. I remember being in there. Let's just see what else we can find. There's another one, Annie. Now, Annie, like we said, had twins, John and Edward. My granddad was an identical twin, and this was my granddad, my dad's father, and this was his identical twin brother. Now, I've got other photographs of them both when they're older, and they were identical. But this chap, after the war or during the war, he lost all his toes, so he walked with sticks. But yeah, but she had several other boys, and this was 1908. And there they are, sat in the old pub, they're belonging to their niece and nephew. That was John, my grandfather's identical twin brother, and his wife Nora. This was the street. I've got a photograph. Gary's stood here somewhere. This is the church, St Mary's Church, where they all got married and were buried or whatever. And this was the street. You come off the main street and went up the alley, and their house was up there, where William and Annie lived. Oh, this is where I used to have the, you know, Little Harridan, where I used to have the meeting for everybody. Now, that was my grandmother. Oh no, it wasn't. That's my grandmother there. Sorry, I'm just going to try and get hold of some. This was Les, Tony Hall, my dad's cousin. And this was all my dad's cousins. I have to show you this because it's you don't get to see these pictures that often. Now, Keith Hall, Les Hall is the one that I couldn't remember the name of. Well, he's now passed away. And Tony Hall, the three brothers. This was on Keith's wedding. I don't know who the others were. And my dad's cousins, first cousins. But, you know, you've got to try then, when you get pictures like that, and you can date them, you go into the records. They're online. One of the family tree places, you pay £10 a month, and it get your free records for everything that, you know, about them. Oh, so these are some of my mum's. John Hardcastle Sturdy was my mother's father. So there's loads of data on them. Lived at Lakeview Avenue, Walton, sorry. No, Walton, Chesterfield originally. Just lots of records you can find. I have a lot of original certificates. That's Annie Hall certificate, and it says widow of William Henry Hall, a builder's foreman bricklayer. Oh yeah. Now the thing is, when you get something like this, it's telling you she was a widow, so obviously he died before her, so it gives you a few years to look into. Interior coronary thrombosis. G.S. Hall was the one, a son, so it tells you she had a son. So there's lots of information, and where they live, 13 Orchard Lane. You know, you have to, she was at 24 Ooze Walks, that's 2 addresses there straight away. You have to double check everything. Eileen Mary Sturdy, that was my grandmother on my mother's side. Let's see. Elizabeth Martha, Henry William Peters. That's so she was the my dad's aunt who died in childbirth. He was a groom domestic at the time. Martha was formerly Wells. This 7 Slows building, so I read that one out to you. And they lived in the same place. So it's great to look at these, you know what I mean? This is my grandmother's. She was, it says here, 27th of January 1901, 28 Silver Street, Fletton, Urban. Charlotte Eva Victoria Gale, Henry William Peters. Martha Peters, formerly Wells. He was a labour brickyard then. So then that gives you can go to the brickyard now and contact them and see what information they've got. Because they did keep a record. Or you could, if they've been handed into the depository place, you can go there and say, well, he was a labourer at the brickyard, and get the details from there. There's lots of ways of finding out information. Again, they lived at 28 Silver Street. Henry William. His father was Charles Peters. His mother was Annie Elizabeth Peters, formerly Bell. So that's where the Bells came into it. Now, if you think of Bell's Whiskey, we are actually related to some of those original people for Bell's Whiskey. And there's another one as well. He was a groom. So he actually worked for the gentry. And like I said, Annie used to sew shirts for the gentry. And he was a groom to the gentry, but he did go to Ireland and buy the horses for Fitzwilliam, Lord Fitzwilliam. She was from Fenstanton. So then I can look up all the records from Fenstanton and sort out information from there. So that leads you to more information. And you just grow it bit by bit. Annie, again, Aaron Wells, Carlotta Wells, formerly Toseland. 1878. He was a farm labourer, and mother was from Godmanchester. So that place, I've been to Godmanchester many times. It's a beautiful place. And in Godmanchester, there's an old hall called Toseland Hall. And I wanted to know how come my family, who originate from Godmanchester, named Toseland, did they own the hall? And I thought, well, way back in the 16th, 17th century, you were known, well, if you moved from one village to the other, or you were known from a village, it would have been John from Toseland, or John from Godmanchester. Do you know what I mean? So that's how you get it. So he possibly worked at the Toseland Hall, so he would have been known John from Toseland. And so therefore, from then on, his name was John Toseland. Because it wasn't until, I think it was 1066, when nobody had surnames apart from gentry. It was after that that everybody started getting surnames. Alfred Charles Boyland, like I said, my grandmother's sister who died, that was her husband. And again, that give you lots of different information on him on a death certificate. That's my dad's birth certificate. Edward Aaron Hall, Charlotte Eva Victoria Hall, late Judd, formerly Peters. So it says late Judd. So that meant he died. So this was in 1932. Oh, Judd, no, that was my grandmother's first husband, who we never knew she had another husband until we started doing the research. And she eloped with my granddad to go up to Nottingham, and they got married up there. You're always secretive. Yeah. And they lived at Bridgend then. He was a grocer's assistant back then. Carlotta Toseland, this was her death certificate. She died on the 25th of November in 1838 at Godmanchester, Carlotta Toseland, which was Charlotte Toseland. Female, 30 years. So she wasn't very old, and he did remarry again, John Toseland. He remarried not long after. Wife of John Toseland, labourer. She died of consumption. He couldn't write. That was the mark of John Toseland, husband, Godmanchester. So it gives you a lot of information. I'll go as long as I can before the camera cuts out. Elizabeth Martha Boyland is the cousin of my father. My grandmother's sister who died, she had one child. Same as my gran, she had one child. And they were the only cousins, Elizabeth Martha. She was, oh, so she was 22, not 21. Peritonitis that she got after. And A.C. Boyland was widower of deceased. Yeah, he was the one that registered it, and they lived 80 Eastgate, Peterborough. They lived actually in the pub with my gran and granddad. My grandfather on my father's side, William Henry Hall, he was 80 years old when he died. He lived at 24 Ouse Walk, died in 1956. He was a retired builder, bricklayer, senile decay and arthritic hip. My God. 80, not bad year, you know, not bad age. His son, George, who lived at 13 Orchard Lane, he sorted that out. So George was the eldest, I think. And this was my granddad, Edward Aaron Hall, who I still miss dearly. Really badly, to be honest. And I get upset about him. I saw him the day before he died. I went down to Peterborough and my dad phoned and said, your granddad's really poorly, come down. And I went down. He was a severe diabetic, but he just got poorly. He didn't feel well, and my dad was worried. So I went down, and my first husband was looking after the kids. And I went into stayed at my grandma's, and he was in hospital. And I stayed 3 days, and the day I left, I went to see him on the morning before I caught the train. And I sat on the bed with him, And we always hugged and held hands, and I just snuggled up to him. He was just a lovely old man. And he knew I knew I wouldn't see him again. I knew he knew I wouldn't see him again. Said our taras, and I left the hospital room. Sorry. And my dad's, I just said to my dad, I won't see him again, will I? And he went, no. And then he phoned me the following morning and at 7 o'clock and said he'd woke at 6 for his cup of tea, or they'd woken him for his cup of tea at 6. And he just said to him, I'm a little bit tired, I'm going back to sleep. And they said, okay, Ted. And he went back to sleep. And by 7 o'clock when they checked on him, he'd gone. So he went in his sleep peacefully. So yeah. Yeah. Heart attack in his sleep. Born 4th of April 1908 at Huntingdon, and he died 27th of February 1984. So yeah, you know, unfortunately things happen like that. I don't know who that one is. I can hardly see it. Oh, it's mine. A photocopy of mine. Yeah, that's when Alfred Charles Boyland and my father's cousin Elizabeth married. They were both 21. Again, my granddad Edward Aaron Hall, and when he married my mother, my grandmother. Now they married in Nottingham, and they lived at 31 Wilford Grove. I've never been there yet, but I will do. His father was William Hall, and his father was Henry William Peters. Her father, sorry, Charlotte Eva Victoria Judd, formerly Peters, spinster. So that was that. Martha Peters was a mother. I don't know who Clark was. But he gives you, you see, you've got all these, who's witnesses and that, so you've got other names to look at. That was her first husband, so that was her first and second husband. She never told anybody she was married, I found out. She married Cyril Fairclough Judd. He was 22, a bachelor. He was a deal porter. His father was John Henry Judd. He was a fitter. Grandmother's was a spinster at 21. They both lived at 80 Eastgate. And 80 Eastgate was called the China Cup. Her father was Henry William Peters, and he was an innkeeper. And it wasn't a coaching house they had. There's just some more family. Let's see who this one is. Oh, William Henry Hall and Annie Wells. So that's my father's mother's side. Father's side, sorry. He was a bachelor, bricklayer. Lived at Benedict's Lane. His father was Henry Bricklayer. Annie Wells was a spinster. Her father was Aaron Wells, and he was deceased. So I can tell you then that by the time she married in 1898, her father was already dead or died. So, you know, you've just got to keep looking and checking. Oh, there's people send me all sorts to go through. Oh my. See how people were sending me things? They'd sent me all these and telling me who everybody was. And oh, it just all needs filing away properly, to be honest. Yeah. God, some of it wants redoing and getting rid of. Now this is a photograph. That's my grandmother. And that was my granddad. Sorry, my granddad, and that was her father. That's my great-granddad Peters. He absolutely adored her. He really did. This is when I was just doing the family book. That's my gran, Eva. She didn't like Charlotte, but she liked Eva. 101, 91, 61, and 51. And she had white hair all the way through. And a cat Smokey. Oh my. Oh, here it is. This is the one where she's outside the shop there. Yeah, I couldn't believe it. It was her. This is all the stuff for the... oh, now, listen. Here, this is what certificates used to be like. Look at that one. Prudential Assurance Company. Whole Life Assurance, juvenile. She was 15 when her mother insured her. My God, and I've still got the certificate. I need to put them away in something special to protect them. Yeah. So again, this was... like I say, I'll do this till the camera runs out. Now, George Hall and Lydia Woolley's Nee Alban, wedding in 1926 in Huntingdon. Now, this is my granddad. So he is George's nephew, I think it was. This was my gran and granddad Hall, my dad's father's parents, right? So he is the son of them. This is my grandmother, and they were cousins. And then in 1929, 3 years after this was taken, they went away to Nottingham and got married. On there, you wouldn't think they even knew each other, but he was very shy, so they say. And this was George and all his brothers and whatnot. And this is Carlotta Toseland. So she was in 26, she was still alive, because that's the same picture with a hat on. There she is. And she's the eldest one there, which I would have thought somebody could have get her a seat. But, yeah. So she would have been, she was born in 1850, so she would have been 76 then, 76. Yeah, and this is their eldest boy getting married. And they're the parents, Albans, of this girl here. So his other brothers are here somewhere. That's one of them. That's the other, and that's the other. And now that was a mate of my... I can't remember who he said. I think that was a mate of my dad's. So my dad would have been on here no, he was born in 36, 10 years later. That's right. It's just weird, just seeing them all again. Oh my God, I didn't think I'd ever see these again. My Uncle Les, that was it. I want to show you one of my gran and granddad, if I can, when they were made Mayor and Mayoress. That was Aunt Marge, her daughter. We called her, well, she was Auntie Marge, she was my dad's cousin. And that was Uncle John Skews. I mean, if anybody knows anybody, I know this was my Grandad Hall, Grandad Peters, Grandma Peters, my Grandma Hall. That's my gran who died at 104, and that's my granddad. They were Mayor and Mayoress of Peterborough. That's my dad. That's my dad. So he was about 13, 14. And this guy was called Whitey, and he was an arsehole. My dad said, a real baddie, and cheated this granddad out of a lot of money. So yeah, so that's that one. Oh, just paper clipping. You see, anything I found or people handed me, I kept. There they are. The guy I couldn't remember, Les. This was Les, my Uncle Leslie, and that was his brother Keith, who you saw the wedding photograph of, and Tony. That was in 1946. That was my grandmother's sister, Elizabeth Martha Peters. Now, Auntie Marge, who I said was my dad's cousin, they were the cousins. So her mother died at 22. Sorry, I thought it was 21. And this was the cousin. My grandmother and her mother brought them up, basically. So, this was Tony Hall, Skews, who was married to my Auntie Marge. My granddad's, look at it, my granddad's identical twin brother. That was his wife, my grandmother, my mother, my two sisters, Joanne and Alison. That's my spot. Keith Hall. Yeah. Jack. It was John Hall, but they called him Jack. But yeah. So, I do a little bit of history on my family. You know, a mason for the great-grandfather. Although he was only a lower class one, thank God. That's my eldest brother Peter, my dad, my mum. You can see it. Joanne's ex, Glenn. Joanne. My eldest sister Linda, my grandma. My ex-sister, that was his wife at the time. My ex-sis Kathy, sister, and that's Judy. Mayor's parlour. He was a lovely old guy. Lovely guy. That was my grandma in one of her first... Oh look, I love that picture. I think, oh go on Grandad, go for it. That's my granddad. Police escorted and the Beatles and the, oh God, what they call the Beatles. That was a, she was 100-year-old. It was a 100-year-old birthday in the home that she was in. There she is. You couldn't mess with her, I'll tell you. She was funny as shit, but you couldn't mess with her. There she is. Yeah. And that's the plaque on the wall inside the town hall. Edward Aaron Hall, 1771. And there it is. I'm going to show you that. This was in his robes, and it's the photograph you see on the wall. My granddad. And my dad looked just like him, even though they only had the one child. The robe I have is a dark blue one. This was official things, but the ones he wore on like daily duties and that, if he was going out and needed his robe, it was a blue one, like a taffeta one, and I've got that. But yeah, not many people can say their grandfather was a mayor of anywhere, can they? I'm very proud of him, and I do miss him. I miss him a lot. This was outside the family home. Top and tail, look at that. Mayor and Mayoress Alderman and Mrs. Ted Hall pictured at their home shortly before leaving for Buckingham Palace. They were guests at the Royal Garden Party at the Palace yesterday, and that was the 10th of June 1970. 14 Green Lane, Peterborough. There. Yes, they met the Queen. In fact, my grandmother... sat next to somebody, because back then you could sit down. Sat next to somebody, they were at a meal, and the woman was asking my grandmother questions about what does she think about certain royal members of royal family members, and she said, oh, there was a certain princess she couldn't stand, and and she said, oh, can't you? So she says, no, she's rather likes herself too much, and she's this, that and the other. And she said, oh right, all right, we must talk again. And my grandmother went, oh, I hope we bump into each other at some point. And she went, goodbye Eva. I'm that person. Oh, I killed myself laughing when my grandma told us that. It was so funny. So funny. I love them pictures of my granddad.